You are seen. You are worthy. You are not alone. The world loses one person to suicide every 40 seconds. Let's change the stats. Together, we can say not suicide. Not today.
Welcome to True Crime, Authors and Extraordinary People, the podcast where we bring two passions together. The show that gives new meaning to the old adage, truth is stranger than fiction, and reminding you that there is an extraordinary person in all of us. Here is your host, David McClam.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the episode of True Crime, Authors and Extraordinary People. Of course, I'm your man, David McClam. Hey, if you guys haven't already, make sure you follow us on all of our social media. One link to a link tree will get you every place you need to go pertaining to the show. All right, just as you heard coming in, if you're somebody that is in trouble, you're thinking about hurting yourself or someone else, please go away from this podcast episode, dial 988. They will be there to help you. And if no one else has told you this today, let me be the first to tell you I do care, and we do need you here. All right, a couple things to cover with you guys before I jump into today's case. This one is a little bit hitting home to me. I'm going to tell you guys some things. Hopefully you believe me and not the person I'm going to expose for the lies that he is about to tell in just a few short days. But first, before we get there, let me tell you where I've been. First of all, I'm sorry you guys have not had a recent episode. There was a recent episode, which was episode 32. You guys probably saw that come down. That was dealing with a young lady named Mel. If you listened to that episode before it was taken down, Mel was still facing court for a review that she left on a certain restaurant because they had shorted her food. And if you listen to that, you knew that she was going back. So I removed that episode because she did go to court. I can't tell you the outcome of that. I will just tell you that it was good. So to aid her in that, I did remove that. I usually don't remove anything, but under certain circumstances, I will do that. If integrity is an issue, or if somebody's battling a court case, it may help them out, or if it's going to damage them, we will remove that. So that's why episode 32 came down, and this one is now your episode 32. The other thing that I have been battling and dealing with is my wife is due here very soon to face what could be life-altering surgery. So I have been taking care of that with her, getting her to and from doctors, making sure everything is going right with that. I've taken a whole leave from work so that I am here on the ready when we have to go to these doctor's appointments, which are many at this point. So that's why you haven't heard from me also on that front. Also, a couple of weeks ago, you're supposed to hear from Joanne Fawcett. She was my extraordinary person. You did not hear that interview because I have been doing battle with Zencastr. I had stopped my subscription with them because I went back to using Riverside, who I started my whole career using after I discovered them. And I told them I wanted to cancel my account. They refused to cancel my account, but they wanted to continuously to bill me. And so they decided that they wanted to hold my podcast episodes hostage to where I could not get to them. I have talked to them. I have told them that it is unethical. I've told them that they cannot hold somebody's work hostage because they do not want to use their platform any longer. So I am still battling that. I may at this point go ahead and pay them their $20 because that's what they want, because I canceled my account. So they haven't been able to bill me because I cut that off from my credit card. So I'll probably go ahead and pay them their little $20. I cut them off because I won't use them anymore. It's my right not to use you. But now they're holding my work hostage. So I will tell you guys, this is what you're hearing from me. I would not use Zencastr if you are a podcaster or thinking about becoming a podcaster, because these are the unethical things in which they do in order to make you continuously stay with them. This is not the first platform I've ran into like this. But it is shocking that they would do this, being of who they are. And, you know, it takes one bad review, as we've heard from other people, to ruin a business. So that is what happened to that. And yeah, usually I download everything right away. I thought I had downloaded that one. I did not. So that one was my fault on that. So soon we will hear from Joanne Fawcett. I will get that file and we will be dealing with that. If you do hear a fan in the background, I apologize. It is very hot here in Southern California today, so I got to keep some kind of air on me. I'll try to take out as much of that as possible, but if you do hear it, that is why. Okay, my friends, let's jump into today's case. And I want you guys to listen to this very, very closely because of who and what it deals with, and it does deal with me on a serious personal level. I've been at this game now for over 6 years. And now, because the story I'm about to tell you is probably why I don't make millions of dollars and why I don't have millions of downloads, because I refuse to put my integrity on the line to lie just so that I can have you come to my show because it's compelling. So let me tell you what I'm talking about if you haven't kind of guessed it from the title a little bit. I've always told you guys that there's many different facets in true crime. Well, here's another one. Lying, deceit, and jealousy. This is what this is about. You guys all know that I am partners with the great LaDonna Humphrey. LaDonna and I have been working together steadily now about a year. But if you're keeping up on the dateline, I've met her almost 2 years now. It'll be 2 years on October 4th. I will go back as far as October 1st or the end of September because that's when I first contacted her. But October 4th, 2022 is when you first heard from LaDonna Humphrey on my podcast, which at that time was just called True Crime and Authors. So that interview dealt well around her book, The Girl I Never Knew Who Killed Melissa Witt, which she went on to successfully write 2 other books. Now, I'm telling you all of this because this case deals with LaDonna Humphrey. So what is going on? And I want to be 100% transparent with you. I told you guys from the beginning, I will always be transparent regardless of how good or bad that it is. You as the audience deserve to know what's going on behind the scenes. And the one thing I hope you guys who listen to me regularly know is the one thing that David McClam is never going to do for anyone is he's not going to come and lie to you or lie for them. I'm not going to put my integrity, no matter how much I love a person, on the line. If I ever find out something is true, I'm going to tell you. But the story I'm going to tell you today, I'm going to tell you there is nothing truthful about it. Let's start from the beginning. And I'm not going to go really deep into it because I will also link you to an episode that we did on Extinguished that also covers this topic in greater detail. However, let's get on with this one. All right, so this kind of all started for LaDonna way back on 2018. She worked for a company then called Absolute Pediatric Therapy, which was ran by a doctor at that point, I guess, called Anthony Christopher. The long story short of that is at some point in time, LaDonna gets fired from there. Anthony Christopher wages this big lawsuit, accusing her of stealing clients and so on and so forth, which at this exact same time, LaDonna became a whistleblower at this point. So during this whole entire case, which I will happily link you to it because it is very public, during this whole entire case, LaDonna has tried to tell anybody who wanted to listen that this guy is committing Medicaid fraud. Nobody really was paying attention to that. I guess she kept blowing this whistle. And then eventually during the middle of this case, Anthony Christopher was indeed arrested for Medicaid fraud. If you look into Anthony Christopher, LaDonna Humphrey wasn't the only one, though, that was saying that he was committing Medicaid fraud. There was a lot of other people that was also saying that he was committing fraud. LaDonna was just brave enough to blow this whistle. So at this point in time, as she's going through this case, he's seeking money for damages and the whole nine. Just to cut it to the quick, I'll leave it for you to read. And the judge does say that he thinks that he should be able to recover damages in upwards of $3.5 million. Now, if you listen to the dude I'm going to introduce you to pretty soon and tell you about, he's going to lie and tell you that LaDonna Humphrey has lost this case. She owes Anthony Christopher $3.5 million and she lost the case. And the mugshot they continue to use, they're like, oh, she went to jail and they're going to tell you she went to jail for all these heinous crimes. No, she didn't. Let me tell you what really happened. So basically, LaDonna has been fighting this appeal after appeal after appeal at some point in time because he wanted to make sure he won this case. From the way I was reading it, Anthony Christopher tried to buy her offensive and defensive rights to appeal for about $12.5 million. After he kind of lost that because LaDonna continues to appeal this, she then gets a judgment that pretty much says, okay, we're reversing all of that. LaDonna appealed and LaDonna won this case as far as the appeal goes. Just to read you directly from the court docket so that nobody can say I made this up and you can read this for yourself. It says, it is therefore ordered that the bankruptcy court's February 14, 2020 order granting the trustee's motion for approval of sale at case number 519 BK 72555, docket 72 is reversed. The matter is remanded to the bankruptcy court for further proceedings, not inconsistent with this opinion and order. What that means is she now has won her appeal. She can now continue to fight this. She does not have to pay this judgment at this point because it's being appealed. Now, when it comes to Anthony Christopher, he knows that this was the only way that he could win this case. He's afraid that if once this case goes back in front of a judge, that he can lose this case. So now what's the next best thing that you can do to a person when you're trying to bring them down if you are in fear of losing? Because now everything he's done in court at this point, he's lost. He's not collecting $3.5 million right now. LaDonna's going to be able to hopefully go in front of a jury, tell her story, and they're going to decide. So the next best thing that you can do is you can start lying. So he starts this Facebook page about people that has been hurt by LaDonna Humphrey. And if you look through all this stuff that he's writing on this page, which I'm not going to link his propaganda here, but I can, and it's private anyways, but I can tell you that in that stuff, he's trying to get a hold of people that either has worked with LaDonna Humphrey, that they feel some kind of way about LaDonna Humphrey, that LaDonna Humphrey probably fired from the institution she worked from. They're just looking for anybody that wants to say bad things about LaDonna Humphrey. Now, as a human being, here's what I wanted you to think about. I don't know how old you are listening to this, but my average audience, according to my statistics, is between 17 and 99. So if you are like me, middle-aged, think back. If I had to dig into you right now and talk to everybody in the world that supposedly knew you or worked with you or came across you or whatever, and said, won't you tell me about so-and-so? Do you think everything I'm going to get back from everybody is going to be positive? Do you think you have no haters in the world? Your children, your wife even can have something against you if you did something wrong. Your ex-wives definitely does if you have any of those, or ex-husbands. You got ex-friends that are ex-friends for a reason. So you can go and get all these people together and say, let's all get together and say so-and-so is a horrible person, and they're going to jump on that bandwagon. And that's exactly what Anthony Christopher did. However, it goes a little bit deeper into a person that we all know. See, I don't know a whole lot about Anthony Christopher other than what I just told you. I can tell you from research I've done that he is a gay man. And that has come up before in LaDonna's court case, I believe, or he's made statements that she didn't like him because he was gay or whatever the statements were. Had nothing to do with him being gay, but he does run a club. So all of this kind of goes in because he's saying LaDonna cares if she's gay or whatever. I want to remind you of this. If LaDonna is such a person against gay people, we just spent 5 weeks over Unextinguished doing a case that involved not one, but 3 lesbians. And we treated that case like any other case we've ever done. We didn't really care if Deanna was gay or not. We were there to find justice. So how can a person turn on a dime just for one person? But this is the stuff they're putting out there. Let's talk about the person that we do know. If you guys are paying attention, you follow my podcast, you probably will look and say, my gosh, his numbers are way off. That's because I had to remove some episodes. Episode 15, which is an interview I did with LaDonna Humphrey and Alicia Lockhart. Episode 32, which is on the death fetish community. And episode number 5, with the survivor and advocate Alicia Lockhart. I had to remove all of those because of Alicia Lockhart. Let me go further into that for you. If you guys have been following my show, if you've read the book Strangled, we'll talk about that also. And if you have followed any of LaDonna Humphrey's things, you will no doubt run across Alicia Lockhart. Now, Alicia Lockhart came into the scene on the second book, Strangled, when she called in an anonymous tip after reading The Girl I Never Knew, saying that she probably had come across a death fetish producer. And she told this story to FBI, to state police. There was no reason not to believe her at this point, because all of the stories she's telling of supposedly being raped by this guy, taken into a basement and the whole nine, it came off as credible. However, what started happening, what you guys did not see or did not know, is none of that was true. Alicia tried to get rich quick, and she tried to do that on the back of LaDonna Humphrey. Let me give you the scenario. What you guys don't know is Alicia Lockhart is a death fetisher. I have proof of that. I've seen proof of that. It is true. I've actually been contacted by some people in the death fetish community asking me what the hell was Alicia doing trying to bring them down when she's one of them. There's also been comments that was posted on the Deep Dark Secrets podcast that was stating that the purple-haired one, meaning Alicia Lockhart, was running two separate lives. Yes, she was a death fetisher, but trying to bring down death fetish at the same time so that she can gain money. So when she called in that tip, she said the magical word, which was basically that he asked her to put on a Mickey Mouse watch and would not shoot the film without it. If you've been following anything on the Melissa Witt case, you would know that the one thing that they have not been able to find after they found her was a Mickey Mouse watch. We believed that the killer took that as his souvenir. If you know anything about serial killers, they always take something of a trophy from crimes in which they've committed. And that watch has been missing for the whole, 30 years that Melissa Witt, unfortunately, has been passed away. So, of course, what happens? The FBI, the state police, LaDonna Humphrey, her whole entire team embraces her, comes in. She's telling the story that I can probably find out where this guy is. Whole nine, boom, book Strangled is then written. As we go through the book Strangled, there's a number of things that Alicia says that is not true. And on the podcast I'm about to tell you about, you're going to hear her spit this whole lie. And I'm going to debunk it for you right here, right now, today. So there is no question in your mind that any of this is true or not. So just to prove my point, because the person that's running this podcast on LaDonna, he doesn't want the truth. If he did, then he would have taken the proof that we've given him. But I'll read you this yourself from a Facebook post that Alicia Lockhart left on June 21st, 2013, that should give you no question if she's really in the death fetish community. I don't think I can save my awesome birthday idea for the big 3-0. I very desperately want a living funeral. I want to wear a fancy dress and lay very still in an open casket. I want my makeup done just a little too bright. I want to know what people would say, wear, and do at my funeral. Indulge me. Then I'll come back to life and we can all dance together. And then somebody writes back to her and says, laugh out loud. Yep. I mean, I don't think there is anything wrong with macabre interests as long as they are fantasy, roleplay, cosplay, etc. But I always thought it was odd that someone literally part of a death corpse gothic community was part of the podcast. There is your proof right there. Now, why did I yank her episodes? Because as you just heard from me reading that, she told a whole bunch of lies, and I'm going to corroborate that with her own writing, not just what you're hearing me say. The one thing you cannot erase is audio, and you cannot erase what is in the written word. I'm going to give you two passages and tell you how they connect and why her stuff was brought down. And then you can decide for yourself. And even though I have taking down her episodes. Believe me, I have every master of every episode I've ever shot. So if I need to produce these, I will. There is a short clippet that is on the episode of Extinguished if you go and you listen to that. So the first one is on page 32 of the book Strangled. This was a page that Alicia Lockhart wrote because if you read that book, Alicia is telling her own story in her own words. I've actually had interviews with her when she was telling me the process that she was going through to write this part of the book and how there was deadlines and she was in contact with LaDonna for help and the whole nine. This passage is important because the next thing I'll tell you after I'm reading this. So this is going to start about in the middle of page 32 of the book Strangled if you do own a copy. It says, after lunch, Carl escorted me out of the front door with his hand on my small back. The studio is out here, he explained as we walked along the side of the house, stopping at a white door, the entry to his basement. Carl opened the door and gestured for me to walk ahead of him down the stairs as he said, this way, m'lady. The basement was well lit and cozy with a living room set up and a morgue slab in the corner of the room. I had expected to see some of Carl's camera crew down there, but it was just him and me. He set up a tripod for his camera and then turned to me. This is the part I want you to pay attention to, is when she stated that she expected to see Carl's, who is supposed to be the producer, they didn't use his real name, camera crew down there, meaning in the basement, but it was just him and me. That was a blatant lie. I've seen it with my own eyes. The movie that she was in, first of all, I know tripod work when I see it. I spent over 15 years shooting videos for YouTube on my own. All I used was a tripod for that. There's no way you can do zoom in and zoom outs if you are using a tripod. If you can do that, it is by way of a remote. That would be no secret then because you would see him raise and lower the remote control, which you never ever see that. So in this video, which is entitled CSI Morgue Alternatives, I went back and re-looked at the whole thing. Her first lie was she said that it was just him and her in the basement, not according to the credits. And I don't believe that we didn't catch this before, but I tell you why I didn't catch it before is because I never watched the whole video until the end. Back in the time where I interviewed Alicia Lockhart and Alicia and LaDonna came on my show, I consider her to be a friend. I did not want to look at this damning video that she told us about if it was going to depict her being raped and that she was going to be very uncomfortable with that. I just wanted to see if I could tell that if she was drugged or not, because in that further up in that chapter or that page of 32, she talks about how they all had dinner or lunch and that she was giving lemonade. And at some point she thinks she was drugged because she had no memory. Since all this happened, I said, I must go back and watch this whole video so I can see what was really going on. Now in this video, and I'm not saying anything against rape victims. I do know, because I have people in my family that's rape victims. Your body does give off certain responses whether you want them to or not. But clearly by watching this video, they wasn't there. She was not drugged. She was not knocked out. You could tell by the way her eyes was fluttering in the whole 9 yards. But the most damning part of that, what I just read to you, is at the very end, it says in the credits, the name that she used, because she didn't use her real name, the name of the person that produced it. And then it says all camera work done by Irma. Irma, at the time, was the producer's girlfriend. Remember the lie. She was in the basement by herself and there was a tripod. The credits says Irma did it. And we have also had clarity from this death fetish producer himself, which he states he's never drugged her. They never had lunch. And yes, his girlfriend was the one that was shooting all of the footage that day. She was not down there by herself. Now, in the podcast that's being produced, I'll tell you about here shortly, you're going to hear the first episode is basically her. And she's going to go on to say, or the host of the show is going to go on to say something like that Carl took and put a red lipstick mark on her neck so it to be looking like that she was strangled. If you go back to the episode I shot with her, she didn't know any of this. She thought that she was strangled. She thought maybe he choked her. She had said on my episode that there was no drawing, that it was a mark. Let me read directly to you from the book Strangled. Again, what she wrote. Now, pay attention. The host of this show is going to tell you that there was a mark on the neck, and she's going to go on like she remembered everything. I think at some point she's going to say she didn't remember everything, but she's going to agree with this. Her own words from Strangled. I had no memory of Carl being my co-star, acting as if we were a CSI guy, talking on the phone about my body to a dispatcher. No recollection of him placing a cord around my neck. I wondered if Carl wrapped the cord around my neck tight enough to make the red markings that were on my skin, or if the markings were stage makeup. If the red was makeup, who applied it? Was it possible that Carl strangled me unconscious and that's why I didn't remember the cord? I guess anything was possible. I couldn't remember. The more I thought about it, the more uneasy I felt. That video should have jogged my memory of the basement, but no memories were surfacing. This concerned me greatly. If you want to go back, and if anybody wants to dispute me, I'll post it. I'll re-upload it. In my episode that I shot for Extraordinary People, I asked these questions. None of this came out. She contradicted herself in the book and what she said on my show. I'll give you a couple of things that I asked that she said in the book was not going to happen. Now, she told you in the book that when he approached her to do the death fetish movie, that she said, no, thank you. She wasn't going to do any type of porn. She wasn't having sex with anybody or getting naked. Ends up that in this video, she's 100% naked and he's doing things to her body that she told us in the book she was not going to allow to happen. When I did my episode for Extraordinary People with her, I asked her straight up, did she know she was going to be naked in that basement? And her answer was, yes, she believed she gave him permission. Contradicts what she says in the book. Second, she came out with she thought that she may have been raped or the whole nine. From what we can tell, she was not. Yes, he did things to her body playful-wise. He had Q-tips going in areas, but that was it. We never seen the producer or the guy in the basement with her was completely clothed, and he was acting like this was straight up a death scene, other than the Q-tip thing. I've never seen anybody go out there and do that when they're calling the coroner out. You do see her at the end getting picked up. Looks like it was fairly easy. If somebody that is very knocked out, no matter how big you is, even on a Schwarzenegger with ease, you're going to see him put a little bit of bend into it because the person is heavy. Like he just jacked her straight up and walked out. Everything that you've heard Alicia Lockhart say on my show was contradictory. I went back and compared it to the book. I went back and compared it to the video. I compared everything that she's saying now because she's trying to bring on LaDonna Humphrey. This is why I had to remove those episodes. There was no truth. The death fetish producer has been reached out to. He's even telling us that there's other films that she may have shot. I just read to you and proved to you that she's a death fetisher because she's posting this stuff on Facebook. There's other people that listen to Deep Dark Secrets that was wondering what she was doing because she's trying to bring down the death fetish community, but she's a part of it. It's all because of money, my friends. It was money driven. And let me tell you how I know that before we wrap this up and I talk about the snake that's putting this stuff out here. When LaDonna contacted me, first of all, I knew all of this stuff. So it's important for me to tell you that the moment that LaDonna Humphrey and I decided to work together, she hid nothing from me. I knew of the lawsuit. I knew of the judgment. I knew everything that was happening at the time. I was a big catalyst in the relationship with her and Alicia because I was there for a lot of things. We had our own, I still have it on my phone, our own text thread where I was talking to her about producing. And that's another thing she lied about. She's supposed to be producing Deep Dark Secrets. She didn't produce anything. All she did was recorded it. She didn't do nothing to it. She just chopped off something and put it up there. And you can tell because in the first season of Deep Dark Secrets, there's a lot of mistakes that should have been cut out if an editor was doing it. There's a lot of start overs. There's a lot of hum and haws. There's a lot of noise. She wasn't producing anything. Now that I've produced shows for 6 years, over 300 episodes, I looked at LaDonna and said, I'm sorry, but your show was never produced. This is just a raw shoot. She just put the intro in the beginning and the outro at the end, and that's it. So her show sounded horrible, which I tried to add in my expertise and say, your show is not sounding really good, but sometimes you don't want to piss people off. And if you're that deep into a friendship, you want to believe, right, that they're doing what they're supposed to do. She even tried to bring down Deep Dark Secrets, as I'll tell you that part right now. So basically what ends up happening between Alicia and LaDonna that's leading up to this whole podcast thing is now that Alicia is not getting the money that she thought she was going to get. She thought she was getting the coattails of LaDonna Humphrey, who's a great author. The girl never knew who killed Melissa went on to great success. And she thought by writing Strangled with her that this book was going to do as good as the other book. When it turned out that not to be true, Alicia started to get salty. And a lot of reasons why I don't think Strangled did as well as it should have before it was pulled is because of the fact that maybe some people knew that this stuff wasn't true. You had death fetishers reading this book and calling her out left and right. And it just did not, to me, as a LaDonna Humphrey fan first, before we even worked together, it just didn't seem like something LaDonna would write. It wasn't her writing style or entertain or anything of that nature. And so when I told her, I said, your book didn't do too well because I just don't think that Alicia was very believable. Well, that's exactly what happened. So now it goes on the extortion trail. So now she comes up and she tells LaDonna, hey, by the way, I believe that you're fetish master. And this is what the whole episode of Extinguish is if you go and listen to that, and I will leave you a link. We're debunking the whole entire fetish master thing when it comes to Alicia, because this is now what she's standing on. She's saying that she is fetish master because if you remember any part of any interviews I've done with them over Strangle, they were infiltrating the death fetish community. They were signing up for these websites and they were going in as different names and they were sending screenshots to each other, the things that they had found so that they can help bring this industry down. That's what they were going to do. Well, one day LaDonna signs in and she's looking around and she sends Alicia screenshots. Now, apparently, at least I don't, if you're signing into a website that you're a member of or whatever, I don't look at what my name is all the time, right? I sign in, it says, welcome, David. My screen name is tucked away somewhere in the corner. I'm done. What do I got to keep looking at it for? Well, apparently, LaDonna found some stuff that was disturbing and sent screenshots to Alicia. And immediately, Alicia noticed that her name or LaDonna's name had been changed to Fetish Master. So she confronts her with it like, are you fetish master? Whatever the case is, LaDonna, of course, denies that because she's not. Why would I send you a screenshot knowing that I'm fetish master without changing that back? Well, after this, Alicia goes on to say she can no longer be a part of the podcast, that she was going to walk away from it, and that they didn't have to really tell anybody anything about it. She was going to keep this secret. So here's your first point of LaDonna is guilty. Why wouldn't she just say, okay, cool, she's not going to say anything about it. She's going to keep it a secret. I don't got to tell nobody nothing. If I'm guilty of being fetish master, and it could ruin my whole career if you tell somebody, and you're throwing me the carrot and saying, hey, we'll just walk away from this. I still care about you. Don't worry. I'm not going to say anything about this to anyone. If I'm guilty, I'm going to run with that. Oh my gosh, I hope that she really don't say anything, man. I don't got time for nobody to know this. Cool, I'm just going to let her go. That ain't what LaDonna did. Less than 12 hours, I was contacted. After that, Amy, her co-host now, her attorney, and a whole bunch of other people was contacted and was told the damning things of what Alicia Lockhart was doing. Which I still have possession of them, was even sent text messages between the two of them where she's accusing LaDonna of being fetish master. Her goal was not to keep that secret. Her goal was that she hoped that LaDonna would not say anything so that they can come back and go, see, she really is fetish master. She didn't say anything. We all knew what was going on. Even Steven, I believe she reached out to, who is the owner of Genius Books, and say, these are the things that is being waged against me. I want you guys to know. So I've known that from the beginning. So then she asked me for my expertise, and you can hear that on Distinguished too. I give you a full rundown of what happens on these PHPP boards, that the control is not your own. The person who owns that website or that board, that is their board and website. You can do anything you want to. It's happened to me. Okay, Rock Band changed my name one day. I didn't change it. It was something good, but they did. But everybody's saying that's not true. I give you the full thing right from the PHPP board. And even though that she had one person tell her that they couldn't rule her in or out, unless they purge documents, I disagree with that. Because you can go back to certain days and times, and you can trace people's IP addresses. I mean, you can do a lot of things throughout these boards because they're making them to the point to where if something legally does come down, you're able to defend yourself. So she leaves the podcast. LaDonna reaches out to me. She's all distraught. And I say, well, what's going on with the whole podcast thing? What are you going to do? Because Alicia knew that LaDonna did not have the technical know-how to edit a podcast. All that was on Alicia, which she did a horrible job of, that she didn't know how to even do anything with the file. She knew how to upload it. That was it. So I said to her, won't you get the information from Alicia? Won't you have her send you then, if she's leaving the podcast and she's wishing you good luck, have her send you your intro and your outro and all that kind of stuff. And don't worry, I'll work with you on it. Well, then Alicia told another big lie, where she told her, oh, the files are too big. I can't send them through email. That is the biggest lie this side of Texas. For the last almost year that I've been producing Deep Dark Secrets, I have sent her files through email just to continually prove my point how much she lied. And since we all use Gmail, if a file is too big, it'll tell you that they're going to link you to a Google Drive to get that, and then you get to choose who all gets to see it. Alicia was hoping that Deep Dark Secret was going to fail because she had people telling her that she was the best part of the podcast. Well, guess what, people? That didn't happen. Since she couldn't get everything over there, I hooked up LaDonna with the girl who does my intros. We got her a brand new intro, outro made. She got her own logo made. Boom, she got Amy Smith. Deep Dark Secrets was reborn. She has me as a producer. I'm getting those out at the highest quality that I can every week. She starts getting comments about how the production of the show has went up and how they love Amy. And so Alicia gets mad again. Now it's extortion time. So then she decides that she wants to try to extort Genius Books. She writes Genius Books and pretty much says that LaDonna Humphrey has not been paying her royalties, and that she's behind several months, and she wants all this money. And now, as the publisher, it's up to Genius Books to make this right and to give her said money. Of course, I get an email or text message to say from LaDonna in mass hysterics, I can't believe that she's doing this. I'll pay her everything. The one thing you guys, the audience, needs to know, in case she lies about this too, is that LaDonna Humphrey saw no money from the book Strangle. All that money she gave to Alicia Lockhart. And when we became partners, she told me that. I says, why in the world would you ever give somebody 100% of the book when you're not even making 100% on your own book? The Girl I Never Knew Who Killed Melissa Wett, she puts a majority of that, if not all of it, back into the cause to help solve Melissa's case. And of course, LaDonna being like my wife, I just wanted to be nice, maybe this will help her and her family out. And I've seen the statements of how much money this book made. I'm not going to say it made $1 trillion, but it made a substantial amount of money. So what do you think Genius Book said when she writes and says, hey man, she ain't paying my royalties? The same thing I would have said. Okay, I'm sorry to hear that. Let me reach out to LaDonna Humphrey and find out what's going on. In the meantime, can you please send me proof that you received no money? Now, I'm paraphrasing, but this is basically what Genius Books is saying to her. Can you prove to us, can you show us in statements the last time you've been paid, and we can get this handled? But Genius Book does the same thing. You go to LaDonna Humphrey and say, hey, Alicia Lockhart swearing you haven't paid her. Can you produce proof to me that you've paid her money? Not only did LaDonna provide proof to Genius Books, she sent me the exact same statements that she sent to them. I have all this right now. I can pull it. So none of I'm telling you I'm making up. I have all the evidence in right here. It showed from the beginning of Strangled when it was released to the last time that it made any money. All of that went to Alicia, it shows it going into her Venmo account. But guess what Alicia told Genius Books when they asked? She had been advised not to give any financial statements to anyone. Really? Did you have an attorney tell you that? If you did, you need to fire him or her immediately, because that's the wrong thing to say. If you not guilty and you have the proof and you owed all this money, the first thing that you would do is send financial statements. Hell, if that was me, upon writing him the first time at Genius Books, I'll be like, hey, Genius Books, look, I'm not getting paid from LaDonna Humphrey. The last time I was paid was here. I'm owed all these royalties. Don't even have to ask. Attached is all of my documentation to prove I have not been paid since the date I'm telling you. You don't even have to ask me. I'm just going to send you the proof right away, because that cuts down a lot of asking questions, and now you can get me my money. But no, Alicia says, can't do it. I've been advised not to. So I'm not going to send you anything. But at the same time, asking Genius Books, you going to send me a check? And guess what Genius Books said? No. We have proof that you received all the money that you were supposed to receive. I have seen documentation from LaDonna Humphrey telling me and showing me when and where that money was put. We're not going to send you anything. As a matter of fact, what I am going to do, though, is we're going to go ahead and we're going to pull the book Strangled. Now you screwed yourself, because the money you was getting, now you ain't getting nothing, because they're going to pull the book because of extortion. And because the fact that you want to lie on your author, and also because the fact that we now have proof that at least 98% of everything you said, if not 100%, in the book Strangled was a lie and made up after we went digging. But guess what Alicia and everybody ran off started saying? Oh, the book Strangled got pulled because LaDonna Humphrey wasn't telling the truth. LaDonna Humphrey was lying. So before we close out and I tell you about the podcast Pretend and what's about to happen there and my interaction with this guy, it's important I go through all of this stuff with you so you have the whole case in front of you. So that if you ever have any doubt, you can go back and listen to this or the Extinguished podcast episode, or hell, write me. I have been given permission to send anybody any proof that they want. I'm happy to give it to you. So after all these lies went around, guess what Genius Books did? They made a statement, May 22nd, 2024. I'm going to read you that statement here in its entirety. And if you do listen to the Extinguished episode, it's read there again as well. This should give you clarity as to why the second book in the Melissa Witt murder case was pulled. It says a statement on the withdrawal of publication of Strangled. Genius Book Publishing is a traditional publisher based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And one of the genres that we publish and for which we have a good reputation is true crime. In order to maintain our reputation and our good name in the true crime community, we contractually require our authors to be truthful, to use only verifiable and demonstrable facts, to not defame any person or organization, and not make accusations against any person or organization by name for any crime or wrongdoing they haven't been convicted of. Our policy is, if one of our authors is caught in a lie or making up facts, we must question the integrity of everything they have told us, including the manuscript of the book published or to be published by us. Only twice in 12 years of publishing true crime has it been necessary to withdraw a title from publication based on misuse of the truth. The first instance was Dr. Lawyer Serial Killer by Connie Price and Rebecca Little. This title was published on November 4th, 2019, and withdrawn from publication on December 12th, 2019, when an interested third party contacted us to give verifiable evidence that the authors made false, misleading, and defamatory remarks, as well as provided Genius Books with forged documents that the authors insisted were genuine. When confronted with this verifiable evidence, the authors doubled down and insisted that their version of the facts was the correct one and any inaccuracies were irrelevant. When we discovered the misleading statements and forged documents, we pulled the title from circulation within 24 hours and cooperated with any interested parties who may have been harmed by the deceptive behavior on the part of the authors. The second instance is Strangled by LaDonna Humphrey and Alicia Lockhart. This title was published on October 28, 2022, and was withdrawn from publication on February 4th, 2024, when Alicia Lockhart made demonstrably false accusations against Genius Books and her co-author LaDonna Humphrey about non-payment of royalties. Upon investigation, we confirmed that Ms. Lockhart received all royalties due her in a timely manner. When confronted with this verifiable evidence, Ms. Lockhart refused to cooperate with clearing up this issue and continues to make the demonstrably false statement that she was not paid. This called her integrity seriously into question, and we began the process of fact-checking her statements in the published title Strangled. To our dismay, we discovered that an accusation she made against a third party was false, despite providing that same statement to law enforcement, including the FBI. It was in fact her willingness to swear to the authorities regarding to these statements that led us to believe her. Strangled was withdrawn from publication within 24 hours of our learning Ms. Lockhart's deceptive behavior. And at this time, it is our position that Ms. Lockhart has a very loose relationship with the truth, and Genius Books will not be party to the defamation of anyone. On the point of defamation, it is important that we point out that true statements do not rise to the level of defamation. In fact, according to the law, the truth is an absolute defense to charges of defamation. Genius Books holds itself and its authors to the highest standards of integrity, and we will not stand by any author, past, present, or future, who engages in defamation in any of our works. It must be mentioned at this point that one of our authors, LaDonna Humphrey, has a judgment of defamation in the public record, which would ordinarily and reasonably give us pause to work with her. But it is, in fact, unrelated to her work in the true crime community. Ms. Humphrey was one of many individuals who accused her former employer of Medicaid fraud, yet only she was successfully accused of defamation. Anyone wishing to look up this judgment is directed to consider that the judge did not permit Ms. Humphrey to present her evidence, much of it from third parties such as the police, and the plaintiff was granted summary judgment without Ms. Humphrey being able to present a defense. Ms. Humphrey would be appealing this decision, and we will be reserving our response until her evidence can be considered on their merits by a court of competent jurisdiction. We eagerly await the results of her appeal. And then it just says, inquiries in this subject should be directed to contact the publisher, Stephen Booth, via email or phone. If anybody wants that, if you don't look it up Genius Book yourself, write me, I'll give it to you. To further kind of clarify a little bit what he says when we move on, he's right. The judge did not give LaDonna a chance to present her defense. They just gave this to this guy. Furthermore, this horrible mugshot that keeps going around, let's clear that up, because they're going to tell you in this podcast, oh my gosh, she went to jail, and then they're accused of trying to burn down people's houses. If you try to burn down somebody's house, wouldn't you be in jail and wouldn't you have a record? Come on, people, get real. But the fact is, yes, LaDonna did go to jail. I think it was for 10 days, somewhere around that, for contempt of court. The contempt of court was because she kept trying to tell the judge that her cell phone was indeed stolen. They're trying to say that her cell phone was not stolen, that she was faking that it was, and that it could be proven the whole nine. So because she wouldn't get off it, she went to jail for contempt of court. Now, what if I was to tell you this? I have in front of my face where they went back and the dude who originally said that they could find LaDonna's phone came back and said, guess what? LaDonna's phone really was stolen. Do you think that they removed that contempt of court charge from LaDonna? Nope. Did the judge come back and apologize? Nope. But has she been exonerated from that? Yes. Because the dude came back and said, I'm sorry, but no, her phone was truly lost, and he starts showing how he can prove all of that. So that clears up the mugshot you're going to see. And the last thing I tell you about the fetish master thing is if you are partners with somebody and they're a fetish master and they're going to harm you, kill you, whatever it is they're supposed to do, you can go hang out with them. Because you see, the fetish master account was created on the evening of November 8th of 2022. Well, as irony would have it, Alicia Lockhart was in Arkansas with LaDonna at that time. LaDonna has sent me and everybody else, including the host of this trumped up show, evidence of this. She secured proof of that for that evening on another date in November that they swear she was posting. That there was 2 posts that day from Fetish Master. When she looked at the time zones, you got to take that into consideration. But LaDonna at that time of the posting that day was at a doctor's appointment with 2 of her kids. And the doctor gave up the letter to dad to say, yeah, she was right here. Now, if your partner is Fetish Master and they're posting this stuff while you are at their house, yes, Alicia was in her house, stayed in her house, traveled with LaDonna to London, went to CrimeCon, was up for awards, doing book signings, all of that. Wouldn't strange things occur? Like, wouldn't your friend just disappear oddly? Wouldn't they do things like make posts at all strange hours of the night since they're probably in bed and you ain't nowhere around? Wouldn't they just disappear? None of that makes any sense because LaDonna was not Fetish Master. We've all proven that without a shadow of a doubt. So now, what do you do once you've pretty much burned all your bridges? No one's believing you. You've went to everybody you can. You've tried to get money from the publisher that he says that ain't gonna happen. So he kills your finances at the quick. He goes, well, guess what? You ain't getting another dime from him because I'm pulling the book because you're a liar. So then you go and you hook up with Anthony Christopher and you try to find everybody else that you think is going to go against LaDonna. And now your whole goal is to publicly shame this woman to the point to where either a couple of things happen. She quits altogether. She just says, I'm done. I'm going to quit. I'm going to walk away. This is the end. I can't do this no more. She kills herself, which, boy, there is a whole lot of liability with that if she did that. Or you just ruin her to the point to where all her friends and family and everybody decides that they're just going to walk away from her. This was their end goal. That didn't happen. Now, you may ask yourself this question. I'm going to answer it. Did I hear from them? No. So LaDonna is such a dangerous person. She's out to hurt people. She's really a fetisher. She's Fetish Master. Oh, my God, she's scary. Why wouldn't you reach out to me and warn me about that? No one's called me. This Anthony Christopher dude ain't trying to reach me. Alicia had my number. It's still the same 10 digits. It hasn't changed in years. No one said boo, nothing. And I guarantee you it's because they knew I'm going to put them in their place and I'm not going to believe anything because I have all the evidence sitting in front of me. So the next thing that you can do is try to reach out to somebody that's going to believe your story. Someone who really doesn't give a damn about their career, obviously. Or someone that thinks that they're so big in the podcasting game because you got millions of downloads that you just have the right to do this to people. Well, they found such a person. His name is Javier Leiva. He runs a podcast called Pretend, a true crime podcast about con artists. First problem with this is, well, that's defamation right there. You can't call everybody a con artist if you don't know that, but that's what they're saying, that LaDonna's a con artist. So he's about to run a series, I think June 4th or something like that's coming out this Tuesday from the day this is shot. Today is the 1st of June, where he's going to run a whole series on LaDonna, telling all the lies I just dispelled for you. Now, supposedly he's got more than 30 people that's going to come on and they're going to tell all these stories about LaDonna and they're going to run her down and say she's done all these things. Again, folks, I'm only telling you the name of this show because it's already out there. I don't support him in the least. Javier is a snake oil salesman. He is the type of journalist of why it's hard for people like me who's legitimate to get people to come on my show and to tell their story, because these type of things happen. You get exploited when you don't even try to go for the facts. In the trailer, he says, He's going to do everything he can to try to debunk these things. No, he's not. I'm going to tell you why I know that. I talked to him. And Javier, if you listening, before you decide you want to try to twist anything I said, my wife recorded the whole conversation. Because see, the way he works is he goes by a Riverside session. It's the same thing I use. But on Riverside, you can record and everything like that. Usually I'm at home when these things happen. So I would have done my due diligence and I too would have recorded the conversation. See, my computer is so set up to where I just hit a button and everything going through it gets recorded. So if he thought that I wouldn't record this stuff, he was wrong. But I had to take my wife to the doctor that day and I had to actually text him and say, hey, can you call me at a later time? I have an appointment to get to. So he called me when I was in my car. This guy did not want the truth at all. None of the truth. And I pretty much shut him down because what he is trying to do, and I know how these people work, is he's trying to go around and he's trying to get sound bites from people. And then he wants to edit those to the way he feels like he can present it to twist his story, to make his story. So he wants to twist the words that we've said. As a podcast producer, I don't know if he produces his own show, but I certainly produce mine. And I can tell you, I call us sentence makers. There has been a number of times where I've had to reconstruct a sentence so it sounded right. So I can totally take a sentence, reconstruct it, and put it in such a way that it comes out the exact opposite of what I wanted. So when I talked to this guy, so I already knew what he wanted. Because I got contacted by LaDonna and said, hey, I got contacted by Javier Leyva. And you know what my first response was? Who the hell is that? He's such a big shot. I didn't know who he was. And she says, well, he runs a podcast. And I says, okay, that's cool. And I said, well, what does he run? So I go and I start doing some digging into Javier Leyva. Finds out that he is a journalist. He has been published on certain publications. And he was in a couple of TV shows, but they were like armchair detective type things. And he has this podcast called Pretend, which now is in its 13th season, I believe. And it's garnering 1 million downloads. So this is who this cat is. So I'm like, oh, okay. What does he have to do with you? And she says, well, he's reaching out because he wanted to talk to me about being on his show or some work that I've done. And I thought that it was about the Melissa Witt case. And then it quickly turned into this stuff about Alicia and Anthony Christopher. And I said, you didn't know that's what he was going to talk to you about? She said, no. Folks, I'm going to read it to you verbatim. Because he blindsided LaDonna. He didn't tell her this is where he was calling to talk about. And when I brought this up, because during our conversation, which I shut him down, I just said, let's get to the point. What do you want to know? And I stood up for LaDonna. I said, all the stuff you guys are publishing is fake. He tried to tell me what I didn't know about the case. And I says, he goes, well, she lost the case. 3.5 minutes. I said, she didn't lose anything. It's an appeal. I says, yes, the state case said, okay, we're going to give it to him. And the judge came back and said, no, we ain't. Miss Humphrey can appeal it. So she ain't out anything. Well, it's still a win. Oh, if you want to look at it that way, but it's appealed, which means it's been upheld. And I said to him, I said, your boy has been committing fraud for how long? He got away with it. But have you dug into Anthony Christopher? Yeah. Okay, if you dug into him, then you know that he's committed fraud. Have you dug into Alicia Lockhart? Do you know that she's running around here in the death fetish community? She's spreading all these lies. And I warned him on that call. I said, I have never seen LaDonna Humphrey as stressed out as she is right now. I have never been so much worried about her, but I am. And I said, I want you to keep this in mind. And you can run back to your little grooves over here, Alicia and Anthony Christopher, and tell them everything I said. I really don't care, but you can let them know this. If anything happens to LaDonna Humphrey, anything at all, if I get a phone call one night that says that my friend has committed suicide, you, Anthony Christopher, Alicia, and everybody else connected to you is responsible. I can prove, her husband can prove, and her friends can prove that there was no other reason for her to want to commit suicide other than the things that you guys are putting her through. So when it came down to that, I called her back and I said, this is what he said. So, by the way, let me preface this, because if you go and listen to his trailer, he says that at the end of the season, that he's going to have an interview with LaDonna Humphrey herself. That interview, folks, is off of the blindsided conversation that she did not know was going to happen. Out of his own mouth, he said to me that he didn't get very far with LaDonna because all she kept saying was, this is ridiculous. And I said to him, well, yeah, can you blame her? You blindside her, which is not ethical journalism at all, and you trick her into talking about this when she didn't know. He gaslit it. Oh, she knew. I said, no, she didn't. She thought that you was calling to talk to her about Melissa Witt. Well, she's the one that brought up the Melissa Witt case. And I said, no, she's not. He lied. Folks, one thing in journalism that people don't like about media is they lie to get what they want. I read to him what I'm about to read to you. Now, you make up your own mind. Did he blindside LaDonna, or did LaDonna know what he was going to talk about? He says, hi, LaDonna. My name is Javier Leyva, and I wanted to see if I can talk about your work on my podcast, Criminal Conduct. She says, wow, I know about your work. You have a fantastic podcast. Are you referring to the Melissa Witt case? Thanks for reaching out. Yes, I love to talk with you about the MW case. When would be a good time to hop on a call? I can chat later today. What is your schedule like? How did you hear about the Witt case? Thank you for reaching out, LaDonna says. And he says, yeah, we have so many mutual friends. I just watched your doc on Prime. Digging into the books now. I'm free 2:30 your time. You tell me, folks, where did that say I want to talk about Alicia Lockhart and I want to talk about Anthony Christopher? Where did that say I run a podcast called Pretend, where I bring out and I expose con artists in the world? When do you see that LaDonna knows that she's going to be talking about Anthony and Lockhart? Because if you're reading the same thing that I'm reading, or that I just read to you, there wasn't a time. She went in thinking she was going to talk about the Melissa Witt case. He even said it was for his podcast, which was called Criminal Conduct. There is a podcast that, in fact, is called Criminal Conduct. But what if I tell you that that podcast has been dead since 2023? It was a very short-lived podcast. It started in August, and the last episode, I should have said, because I didn't look down far enough, ended November 17, 2023. Podcast is defunct. It wasn't even Javier by himself. It was him and a dude named John Taylor that did it. So the podcast ain't even producing anymore. So he lied. So LaDonna walked blindly into this conversation and got whatever information that he wanted to get, which I already knew that she denied a bunch of everything and that she said this is ridiculous. He even said that himself. But after I read this to him, he still tried to tell me I was wrong. The name of the show, guys, is Pretend. The name of the series that he's trying to run or will run is Who's Afraid of LaDonna Humphrey. He's already dropped part 1 for subscribers only. Here's the other thing about money, because it's not supposed to drop until Tuesday, but he was quick to tell you, hey, Pretend Plus members, if you get on that bandwagon and go and sign up for that Pretend Plus, you can go ahead and get it now. He's charging $4.99 a month for 3 days and $50 a year after 3 days free to peddle this BS. Frank Abagnale, which was the actual subject of the real Catch Me If You Can, he's been raked over the coals for that one. People kept saying, why you keep bringing him up? Why don't just leave things alone? He's been raked over the coals for that one. Now you have all these people that's blind. Let me show you how deep this goes, how childish this is. He's taken out a Facebook page called Who's Afraid of LaDonna Humphrey. LaDonna Humphrey owns LaDonnaHumphrey.com. He's taken out LaDonnaHumphrey.net and running this same thing. He's harassing LaDonna right now. So is Anthony Christopher. So is Alicia Lockhart on all social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter included. They're harassing Genius Books. He did not want to hear the truth because you're not hearing from any of us. You don't see I'm on the show. You don't see Stephen Booth on the show. You don't see you don't see Amy Smith on the show. Anybody that has anything to do with LaDonna, we ain't there. The only person out of this whole innocent crew that is LaDonna, based on a conversation that he recorded on Riverside. And I hate to break this to him, but in my state, yes, I can agree for you to record something, but you can record it, but I have to also give you another consent if you're going to use that. So if he uses anything I said, I'm going to sue him because the fact that I didn't give him permission to use that. Not that I said anything wrong. I have the whole audio, but I don't want to be a part of this witch hunt that he has going on that's completely untrue. You guys can make up your own mind, but I had to come and tell you this because she is my partner. And this is coming out in droves. They're reached out to everybody who wants to listen, Crime, Con, and everybody else. I'm still behind LaDonna. Genius Books still behind LaDonna. We will continue to. You can dig further into Christopher or Anthony Christopher if you like. But people should be careful because they do not know the things of which I do know about Alicia Lockhart and other people. There's a lot of things that I do know that nobody else knows that I know. But I keep that close to the vest. So when it's time for me to have to present these things, nobody has the room to say, oh my God, he's lying, because I'm going to just hit you with it. Sometimes we need to be careful of those of who we get in bed with. But if you look through this guy's website or through this guy's podcast, this is all that he does. And this is what he makes money off of. Ruining somebody else's life. In closing, I tell you guys this. LaDonna Humphrey is one of the most genuine, honest people I have ever met. The only thing that she can be accused of doing wrong, if you guys want to hold her public opinion, is taking in Alicia Lockhart. But I want to remind you that if you want to say that LaDonna was duped, so was the FBI, so was Fort Smith Police Department, so was Crime Con, so was I, so was everybody. When you make these bold statements to the Federal Bureau of Investigations, what is there not to believe? You're not going to go mess with them. They can lock your butt up for life. It's a money extortion. It's a money grab. And it's an attempt to bring LaDonna Humphrey to her knees. And I will put everything I have on the line. My name, my reputation, my career. And I will tell you guys this 100% out of my own mouth. I can prove it. Because I believed her from the beginning. I told LaDonna there was no reason why she needed to give me proof of that. But she did. I hold all the documents. I hold all the emails. I have all the court transcripts. Furthermore, they're going to have her sister come on the show and tell a bunch of lies. I have the document that was sent to Javier telling him everything that Mark was about to say, that ain't true. I have the document sitting in front of me where she gave over temporary guardianship to LaDonna and her husband and her parents because she was going into rehab. People, you have to report on things that nobody else can prove. Javier Leyva is a snake in the grass. He is what is wrong with journalism today. He is what is wrong with podcasting today. He makes it hard for people like me who legitimately sits behind this microphone because he wants to tell you guys stories of people that can help you, of people that's come out of some stuff, some true crime stuff to get solved because he's all about the almighty dollar. And he has people that blindly follows him because of this. I've never heard of this podcast before because I don't follow witch hunt podcasts and podcasts that lie. And clearly this is one of those. So you guys can make up your own mind. LaDonna Humphrey is going through a hard time right now, but we're all there to back her up. And like I was saying, I would give my life, my career, my name, because I know that she's innocent and she is true. And the only thing I've told her that we can do is we can keep moving on in the way that we have. The moment you stop and the moment you give up is the moment they win. They've won nothing yet. Because if I was to dig far enough, I'm sure I can find some dirt about Javier Leyva somewhere too. So he ain't innocent either. Just because your career looks all still in the eyes of the public doesn't mean anything. I will tell you this, as a podcaster, or as he calls himself, a journalist, I would have never, ever ran this story Because the evidence, my friends, that I have, Javier has all of it. But guess what he didn't do? He never wrote back to any of us. I've sent him evidence. LaDonna sent him mountains of proof. I have it all categorized in my email. LaDonna's written out to people that's in her organization. She's written to the police. Man, I have it all. Javier's never said one thing, but they better be careful because this is on defamation. Lawsuits can be filed. And if you do this the wrong way, you will be held liable. And you got to also keep in mind that you're not only messing with LaDonna Humphrey, you're messing with me, you're messing with Amy, you're messing with anybody else that has a business association with LaDonna, because not only are you screwing up her businesses, but you're also screwing up ours. And I am not the right person to be doing that with. All right, guys, so that is the episode. I hope that you appreciate the fact that I came to be honest with you guys. This is kind of my true crime episode because this is a true crime of deceit, jealousy, and greed. If you guys do decide to go over there and listen to this episodes that he has coming out, make sure that you leave whatever you feel you need to leave. But the fact of the matter is, I want you to always keep in mind, I am one of those people that I do not let people into my inner circle. And if LaDonna Humphrey is this close to me, that means she's always close to my family, my wife and my kids, who I hold very dear to me. And no way will I ever let a criminal come that close to anybody in my family. So LaDonna, keep your head up. Those of us that know you will always stick by you. And those of us that are snakes who just wants to ruin your name, you don't need them anyway. You keep doing what it is that you do. Your audience and your true fans will appreciate you for that. And your career will still be intact long after these goofballs have gone away. All right, before we get out of here, one last thing I want to tell you is, as you guys see, there's a new logo. I forgot to mention this at the beginning. Diana over at Diana Otherworldly is my new artist. This is something I've been looking forward to because she's encapsulated what I wanted for the logo of True Crime Authors Extraordinary People. And in some platforms, it hasn't changed yet. But I just wanted to point out and say thank you to Diana for all of the fabulous work in which she has done. And I really appreciate it. All right, going forward, I will not tell you who's coming up next because I'm in the situation now where I do have to jostle around some authors. I try to make sure that I get people as close to their published date if they have a book that's coming out. And at this point, I've had to move some things around because of that. So I'm not going to tell you anymore who's coming up because I'm really not going to know in case I have to switch. I already have a person in my mind that I'm going to release, but if something was to change, I don't want you guys to feel like, hey, all of a sudden he said this person was coming and nobody came. So I want to let you guys know that. Also, please bear with me. I'm trying to get back on a regular schedule. That's all going to determine what goes on with my wife. So if there is a time where I'm missing for an episode or two, please know that I am dealing with my wife and her surgery that's upcoming, and I will be back to you guys as soon as possible. All right, everybody. Once again, thank you for joining us today. I know you have many choices in true crime and interview podcasts. I am grateful that for the last 2.5 years of this one, you have chose me. You have been listening to the only 3-faceted podcast of its kind. So be good to yourself and each other. And always remember, always stay humbled. An act of kindness can make someone's day. A little love and compassion can go a long way. And remember that there is an extraordinary person in all of us. I'll catch you guys on the next one.
Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. Join us on social media. One link to the link tree has it all. Feel free to drop us a line at truecrimeandauthors@gmail.com. Sound mixing and editing by David McClam. Intro script by Sophie Wild and David McClam. Theme music, Legendary by New Alchemist. Introduction and ending credits by Jackie Voice. See you next time on True Crime, Authors, and Extraordinary People.